Hello guys, welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to the Project Data Analytics community, guys. It's a nice Wednesday evening. It looks a bit sunny here, actually. So I hope some of you are joining us elsewhere. The same is also for you. So this is our fourth meetup of our second meetup of the month on the fourth week of the Wednesday. And today we've got a special guest speaker in Mark Walcott, who'll be doing data analytics within project data using Power BI, Excel. How many have we got today, Sophie? Do you know? Currently?
About 300 people, hopefully.
Excellent. Cool.
Yeah, you never know, but that's who signed up.
So, guys, just a quick note before we start. This presentation will be recorded and uploaded to our website. So if you do want to close your cameras and also please mute yourselves, that would be greatly appreciated. And we do this so people can go back and watch the recording post-session. So we kick things off as tradition with Mentimeter. So if you can please log on to Mentimeter and use the code 83768721. There's also a QR code to take you to the Mentimeter site. So we use Mentimeter to gather your responses. It helps us understand the community a lot better so we can create events which are more relevant to you and who we have joining us as part of the community. And we also run a research report that we conduct every now and then. It's quite infrequent at the moment, but we've got one coming out in November. We had one come out in July. But what this does is it collects kind of a status of project data analytics across various sectors, of which the last one focused on cultural change. So we run these mentees to kind of pick up that data and kind of give you insight into where people are in terms of adoption. So the mentee is an avenue for you to decide kind of how you want to take and kind of shape the community. We're also using the Mentimeter today to kind of do a follow-on from Mark's session to kind of focus in on where he can narrow his scope for future talks. So we highly value your response. So if you could please load up Mentimeter and engage with the questions, we would greatly appreciate that. My colleague will also put a code in the chat, which will make it a lot easier for you guys to start. So community aims. So for some of you who are new to the community, the PDA community sits within at the intersection between P3M and data analytics and data science. In terms of our aims, we look to exploit the rich themes of project data, demonstrate the art of the possible, be a force for change, develop a new cadre of skilled professionals, forge a collegiate network to help each other and help companies form and grow. We have actually had someone who reached out to us a couple of weeks ago, who was involved with the community and also with our hackathons, and they actually managed to get a role with Gleeds as a data scientist. So we're kind of covering a short story on that in the future, but that kind of shows the impact that the community has for those who are looking to kind of broaden their networks. So I'll just kick off with a few bits of information regarding the community itself, and then I'll pass it over to Mark in about 15 minutes or so. So in regards to upcoming events, well, today's event. So this is led by Mark Walcott. So Mark Walcott is a special guest speaker for us. He's been a part of, well, he's a massive inspiration for Martin and for the establishment of our community. He runs the London Business Analytics Group, which is also a meetup, so check that out. Mark's been with us from the start, effectively. He's been involved with the hackathons, with meetups, masterclasses, and he's also a guest speaker for the Project Data Academy as well, where he specialises in Power BI. So welcome, Mark. Great to have you along with us again.
Thanks, good to be here.
So this talk, guys, will focus on project data specifically, and we'll cover all aspects with Mark's talk, but I'll let Mark give you a lot more regarding that. In regards to upcoming events, we've also got a talk on the 20th of October. So because this is a hackathon month, we only have one meetup talk that month, which will be on the third Wednesday of the month. And that is a panel session focusing on government and the potential data analytics within that industry. So we'll be joined by Eleanor Williams, who's the lead for learning from experience and communications in the MOD, supporting project delivery functions. Eleanor's got a background within international staff at NATO headquarters, where she operated within information sharing. And we've also got Catherine Poyner, who's the head of defence and project delivery functions, who's also worked at UNESCO and the Cabinet Office, where she was the head of transformation and of the government security group. And then we've also got Alan Perkins, who's visiting us again the second time this year. Alan Perkins gave a talk early on in the year in terms of the adoption of data analytics and driving towards a digital future for Highways England. but Alan Perkins is the head of complex infrastructure programs at Highways. And of course, we've got our very own Martin Paver, who will be leading the panel. So this is an amazing event as well for those who are coming from government, which should be really cool. And I've just noticed I haven't actually run the Menti, have I? So I'll probably do that. So in regards to the Menti itself, where are you guys joining us from today? Mostly everyone's from the United Kingdom, which is excellent. It's what we usually expect. We did anticipate that we'd start to move across outside the UK as COVID and we went virtually. But again, we're always looking to broaden our horizons. I see we've only got 33 participants, so I apologise for me not actually turning to the Menti. But if we can go back to that and engage with it, and we can look at kind of what sectors you guys typically work in. So this is always useful for the speakers to kind of fine tune their talks to your industry, depending on what you put. So I can see a lot from government, from construction, where the community kind of started from within construction. So we do typically see a high saturation of construction attendees. We've also got a lot from the other, which we haven't really ever drilled down into. So we should look to kind of change the Menti to pick those up. But it'd be great to kind of maybe change this to like a middle sort of thing, so we can pick up who these people are. But no, quite equal, none in retail or health, unfortunately, but we always have a wide diversity within the meetup talks. One from health just popped up, excellent. What is your current job role? So there's a whole host of options there, so I hope it isn't too ambiguous, but yeah, if you guys can just fill that in, that'll be excellent for us. So we've got a few data professionals joining the call today: project management, controls, many within leadership, a few within academia as well. That's excellent. Students, again, a few others. If we can keep notching that up, what is the numbers? Do we know? Have you got a number of the attendees in the call at the moment, Sophie? Are you still there?
Yeah, still here, 85.
85. So we've just got roughly short of 50%. If we can nudge that up a little bit, that would be greatly appreciated, guys.
Still only 5 minutes into the event. I think more people will be coming in.
Yeah, cool. Cool. So we'll kind of press on with this. I don't want to take too much of Mark's time with the main presentation. I know that's why you guys are all here. A few more questions. So what is your professional level? Entry level, intermediate, mid-level, senior execs? Cool. Shared across the board right now. Cool. So an interesting talk. Typically, when we see the masterclass talks of different sort of tools being used, we do get many within the intermediate and middle level, but it's good to see a lot of senior execs joining and those within the entry level. Welcome. Back to presentation. So I'll go back to the presentation of which I skipped the Menti initially. Bear with me. Let's swap that side across. Cool. So upcoming events again, we've got one from James. So we're revisiting, I won't take that off. We're revisiting the Project Data Analytics Starter Kit. So for those of you who are beginners, like you mentioned, James runs through a walkthrough of data analytics within project delivery. So run through different use cases, looking at different tools. So we know that many roles are going to be changed with the adoption of data analytics going forward. So how can we augment your roles and upskill people within data analytics? So James runs through all of that. This is quite a popular event. We had about 300 signing up for the last event. So for those of you who haven't yet seen this, now is a great time to register. So free event as usual. And then one more, we've got a task force event coming on the 23rd of November. So for those of you who have been following the task force, we've had a few interests from people within the last few weeks actually, but the work stream leads will be doing kind of a progress update call to kind of show you what they've been working on through 2021, as well as looking forward to 2022 and forecasting where the ambition will take them then. So if you do want to get involved with the task force, you can email me. There is a PDA task force website, which there isn't a link currently. But it's great to wait for the event to come out so they kind of give you a clearer update on what that is. In regards to news, Project Hack 11, which is actually an event, but we have now had over 100 signups for the physical event. There are still spaces left, but I'd recommend registering soon as there will be limitations due to venue capacity. In regards to Project Hack 11, it is now in its 11th iteration, so we've got a whole host of new challenges which I'll cover in a second, but it will be held in London. But I've been informed that it is also now a hybrid event. So for those of you who can't attend in person, there is the option to sign in through the virtual Teams environment like we do typically, and then your teams can work on challenges that way as well. Just to give you some more insight into the types of challenges people will be working on, there's 3 challenges here. So one of them is a project plan dashboard. So this challenge is about understanding the effects of frequent changes to project plans. You'll be provided with data on a project schedule plan and the updates that are submitted to it, and it is your job to understand the effects these changes have. So this will kind of require a live dashboard to analyze changes, as well as create a tool to present a report to clients and stakeholders. The second challenge is about collecting feedback data from customers and leveraging that data to easily understand client relationships. So developing reports of clients, and you'll be tasked with creating a feedback collection application and a centralized database for data storage with an automated flow for approval and updates. Another example for Project Hack 11 is a challenge here, which is tackling the issue of climate resilience. So how quickly can we recover from the impacts of severe weather within the transport sector in London? You'll be tasked with exploring possibilities on methodology and creating a tool that will allow for effective data collection with the long-term goal of leveraging data to protect assets and potentially save lives. So those are just 3 potential challenges for Project Hack 11, and I think we have in total 14 of which have been developed in line with the MPA as well. Like I mentioned, in regards to venue and catering, it's in the Hallam Conference Centre. Food and drink will be free through the event, so that's another incentive for you to join. In addition to a £5,000 prize pot, which is shared unequally, I'd say, across the top 4 winning teams, with the winning team obviously getting the biggest prize. So if you do like to join, there's a link in the chat. I'll also flag up the QR code now. All ticket proceeds do go to cancer research as well, so it goes to a great cause. And we can see all of our sponsors at the bottom, so a big thanks to all of our sponsors, particularly the MPA, which is our major sponsor for this event. Another thing from me, for those of you who are interested in upskilling within data analytics, our October cohort for the apprenticeship closes at the end of this month. All new interest at this point will look to start in November once the deadline passes, and Power BI and Excel are taught on the course, of which there are no costs to you if you're UK based and are within employment. It's funded by the government's mandatory training levy. So if you are interested in the apprenticeship, just send me an email or reach out to our team. I've also tagged in a leaflet there with a QR code and a link that my colleague can put in the chat. So if you are interested, check it out, and I'll be glad to hear from some of you guys. In regards to Mark Walcott, like I mentioned before, Mark is the founder of the London Business Analytics Group. So they were a big inspiration for our community in starting. They hold weekly online training events, exploring data sets, not just from projects, but they look at public health data, COVID, finance, politics, football, and they leverage tools such as Power BI, R, Python, and SQL. So that's weekly, Monday, 1 p.m. and Tuesday, 7 p.m. British summertime. And the YouTube links there, the Twitter handles there, and there's also a QR code if you want to look at their meetup profile. I think they have just over 10,000 or so. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong there.
10,000.
So they're a big community, and they do a lot of work. I've seen Mark's YouTube channel. You can consume data and knowledge in small chunks. It's a really great way to learn. One last touch on the Menti. We were looking to go through some questions regarding our research report. This won't take long at all, but these questions are focused around how you used Power BI visuals and how mature you are in terms of your utilization of Power BI tools. So or business intelligence tools. I'll just quickly flag up the Menti one more time, and that will be that. And then we can press on with the main presentation. So if you can please engage, that would be excellent. So some of you might have already seen this on the last meetup, but we thought it was quite relevant for this talk. So this question is looking at how developed are your visualization dashboards within your organization. Let me know if that's, you might have to re-click onto the Menti, guys. So many of you are, well, it's kind of in agreement with that you're dabbling. Most of you are disagreeing that we have role-based dashboards. And not many of you have dynamic dashboards that change according to project phase or importance. That's interesting. So I think you can take some of this away, Mark, and kind of build your talk on this as well, I think, depending on what we see. Cool. I'll move forward. How would you describe your organization's use of dashboards? The one big, we're just starting. Oh, quite a few actually. we have just enough of them. They don't generally get used. I think that's also a problem as well. I think there's the aspect of implementing dashboards, but there's also the danger of overcomplicating and kind of getting death by dashboard. I think it was overload. 36 we just started. I think this is right up your street, Mark. Too many of them. Cool. How effective are your organization's dashboards in providing useful insights? Those are quite small, right? I hope you guys can actually see that. We've got the question as the answer there. I just noticed that. Apologies there. People don't use them properly or can't read them, 57%. Can't see the wood for the trees. We have the wrong information to make effective decisions. But typically we're seeing a recurring pattern, right? People don't typically use their dashboards for useful insight or can't read them. So I think that's kind of a recurring theme. And with our research, what we like to do is kind of revisit this within a couple of months' time, maybe, or within 6 months' time, and see how that changes as kind of project data analytics starts to receive higher adoption, really. In terms of visualizations, do you use the basics? Do you integrate data using DAX or similar, or do you actually have complex integrated data pipelines? So as I imagine, I think we'd see most people using the basics, some integrating data and using DAX, which is interesting, and then roughly 10% currently have complex integrated data pipelines. So I think we'd see that with some of those organizations who on the apprenticeship, we advocate kind of leveraging the kind of the complex integrated data pipelines, but I think that's pretty cool. And I think this was Mark's question that we'll answer at the end. So I think we'll move over to the main presentation now, Mark.
Great. Yoshi, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah, excellent.
Lovely, thank you. And this just coming up. Thank you, everybody. Just put you up there so I can see you. Lovely, great. So I'm going to be talking about analyzing, visualizing data, a lot in Power BI and a bit in Excel. Even though I'm talking about Power BI, just one visualization tool, a lot of what I'm saying is going to be applicable to any visualization, any dashboards, or whether using ClickSense or Tableau. A lot of it's going to be relevant. Thank you for the introduction, Yoshi. That was great. So I hope to see you sometime at our meetup. We meet monthly rather than weekly. We were a bit mad at the start of lockdown, but we have this wonderful YouTube channel that has all our videos on as well. So let's get into this. I started my abstract with a rather contentious statement. Project data is different from ordinary data. And I'm surprised that nobody picked me up on that. I mean, it's a bit, oh, come on, Mark. Data is data, whether it's project data or commercial data or financial data. It's at the end of the day, it's all rows and tables and columns, categorical data, numerical data. What you're saying is rubbish. Well, I will contest that project data is different in style, if not in substance. I've recently been working on a project to show and visualize lots of project data, and it's different in the sense that it has a lot more descriptive attributes and it's very qualitative and not very quantitative. I'm going to show this, prove this by showing you a fictional data set that we're going to use, and we'll see that. So project data as well doesn't have very many numbers in it, and that's a hard thing. It makes it harder to visualize it. So we'll talk about that. And when I talk about project data, I'm talking about maybe the kind of classic stuff, the projects and their attributes, the resources and their skills, and the assignments. When are resources assigned to projects, for how long? And the questions are, when can we start a project? Do we have the resources? Who's available? Who's not? And that sort of thing. So kind of very classic kind of project data. Good. What I'm going to be showing, you can read this as well as me. I've got about 5 minutes of slides just basically to introduce the challenge, and then I'll get straight on into a demo. But basically, we've got some particular problems that come from project data. As I said, we've got so many of these categorical attributes. How do we fit them all in? In my example, I've got a project table with 15 different attributes in for a particular customer. There's 100 attributes. How do we get all that information in and show them it nicely? And also, how do we show them good, simple visualizations of when and where? With commercial and financial data, it's almost easier because we've got kind of things like measures like revenue and costs and exposures and risks that we can hang our visualizations on. But here it's a bit more difficult. And though I'm not going to really touch on it on this this talk, maybe it's for another talk. Project data is full of dates: launch dates, start dates, end dates, stage dates, enough dates to drive you crazy. And we might just mention that, but talk about it maybe at some other time. Good. Bit of a spoiler to what's going on. Basically, we're going to talk about how we might use some techniques. Again, I've used Power BI specifics, though we'll be able to generalize it to more visualization packages. We'll talk about techniques such as tooltips, drill through, personalization, bookmarks, and how they can help. In the end, though, a lot of it comes down to building a good data model. That's a relationship of our tables when we put our data together that allow these kind of visualizations to flourish. A lot about Power BI, a bit about Excel, a couple of things in Excel that are really good. Pivot tables you all love and will know and love or either hate. We'll just mention that we can use those from the Power BI dataset, but linked data types are a way of giving people their data in Excel, and again, being based on the Power BI data set that we're going to publish, and so that they are all singing from the hymn sheets. And I think it's a particularly nice way, and I'll show that. So that's what we're going to be doing. This is how we're going to do it. First of all, I'm just going to show you our kind of sample data set and kind of explain a bit of background to my fictitious project management company. Then we're going to Power BI Desktop. Power BI Desktop is the free tool from Microsoft that you use to offer your reports and your dashboards and then publish them to a Power BI service where everybody else in your organization can consume them. What I'm doing is I'm not building things from scratch today. I'm going to show you a worked example, and then I might build of a particular example, maybe like a tooltip. Then I'll show you a rough and ready building a really ugly tooltip from scratch in a couple of minutes, just to show. So a bit of hand waving going on today. There will be I'm going to show you a link to where you can download all the demo files. So if you want to kind of reverse engineer what I've done and have a look at what I've done, then that's great. So a bit of hand waving, just showing that how things work, and then very quickly building it from scratch. So we'll talk Power BI Desktop, then we'll publish the Power BI service. We'll have a look at something called personalization, which I really like and helps. And then we'll go and have a look at our data in Excel. And good, right. And so, as I said, resources are available, and let me show you where they are. Somewhere in a chat window near you, I'm hope that somebody will put in the links, one of the organizers, but basically, I've got a public OneDrive. On that OneDrive, when you've got the link, you'll see this. It's got the sample data in an Excel file. It's got the worked example project Power BI file, project analysis, and it's got these slides as well. I'm not quite sure I put those in there. So at some time, you might want to have a look and have a look at the detailed how to. I say I'm not going to do too much detail how to there. So that's the data. And eventually what we'll do is we are going to publish something, and we'll start. This will be our published report. Good, great. Okay, let's start off looking at my sample data, and let me just go to Excel and bring this up. This is my project management consultancy, and this is the data that we'll be looking at today. Clearly fictitious data, but I've tried to make it kind of representative of the kind of data I see. So this project management company, call it the Zomlex Project Management Company, is working on 4 projects. Very unoriginal names: Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta. They're not coronavirus variants, they're projects. And for each of those projects, we have a lot of attributes about them. So many, I can't fit them on the page. Now, as I said, I put 15 attributes here. As I say, in real life, we see maybe 30, 40, 58. I've got one customer that's got nearly 100 attributes there. So, and some of these attributes are dates. Dates are always important in project. The go live date happening a month before the launch date for these particular projects. And there's not many numbers. When I look at commercial and financial data, then I see lots of numbers and those numbers become really important. And here we've got a few numbers, but it's kind of expected revenue. It's just another detail. It's not the main focus of what we're interested in. What are we interested in? That's a good question. Well, let's talk a bit more about the projects. Despite our modern company, we run a kind of waterfall design, and each project has 4 stages: concept, design, delivery, and run. And each of those stages has a start date and end dates. We've got, as well as that, we've got our corporate colors for these stages, and I've used these names here. And these are names that actually Power BI recognizes. They're actually what's called CSS colors. We'll talk about those later on. So we've got our corporate colors. And then for each of our projects, what we've got is we've got start date and end dates for each of those. So our alpha project, the concept starts on the 1st of Feb, finishes on the 31st of March. The design phase, we take a 6-week break before we start the design phase. That started on the 15th of May and so on. So we've got those stage dates. Finally, we've got our resources. And for my company, I've co-opted in my brothers, sisters, brother-in-laws and sisters-in-laws. I have an HR policy that says I never employ anybody, only employ one person with the same first name. It's a terrible HR policy, but it makes my data modeling easier. So I can just refer to people by their first name. And we've got a mix of project managers and a few business analysts there as well.
So Mark, just a quick question. I think some people are having issues with the link. It's saying they can't, it's requesting them to sign in.
Okay, I'll make a better link available later on. Don't worry about that, but I'll make a better link available. Right, I won't do it now because it'll take a minute or two to do it.
Yeah, sure.
Let me just send you, in fact, let me just do one thing. I have actually got a link up that I brought up. So let me just do this. Let me take this link. I'm going to take this link and I'm going to put this link into the chat window. And with a bit of luck, this link will work. If not, sometimes they kind of expire for no particular reason. And if somebody can just tell me if that link that I've just put into the chat window works, that would be good to know.
It works for me.
Good. Great.
Okay.
Lovely. If it works for you, it should work for everybody.
Yeah, I think we're getting some thumbs up.
Great. Fantastic. That is good news.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay. Let me go back to this. Okay, and here's the crunch. What we're going to do is we've got some allocations of our resources to our projects. So, for example, Mary is working on the Alpha project. She's working from February 2021 to April next year, and she's working 60% of her time during that period on it, and so on. So we've got our allocations. So that's our data. And what we've also got is we always need a table like this in any data model, whether it's Power BI, ClickSense or Tableau or whatever. It just tells us all about our dates. We've got, because our projects all start and end in this year and next, our date table goes from the 1st of January this year to the 31st of December next year. And we've got all details about our weeks and our months in there. So good. So that's our data set. Good. I'm going to put that away now. And what you've got, I'm going to put that away as well. And that. And what we've got, if I go to my Power BI, you've got this Power BI file. That was one of the files available, and you can open it up. And we're going to start off, just to prove a point, we're going to start off and we're going to look at the data. So all I've done in this thing is I've just brought in the data. So we can see on this page that what I'm doing is that I'm just bringing the data. It's exactly the same as we saw in the Excel file. If we wanted to have a look in transform data, we could see, but nothing is happening. I've got my transform data on this screen. I'll bring it over. Lovely. And there we go. And you can see what I'm just doing is I'm just bringing in each of those Excel tables. I'm just bringing in the tables. I'm doing very little in the query editor. The query editor is the tool that we use to connect to data sets. And if we need to transform them or reshape them, we can do that. So I'm not doing that. And I'll just close that. Good. So I've got the data in there. And the first thing I might want to do is I'm going to start off by transforming one table. This is the allocation table. We've seen that exactly as in this spreadsheet, but that isn't very good when we want to build visuals, because Power BI or any of these are not very good at looking at something. They can do it, but they're not looking good at something saying between a start date and an end date. So what we need to do is to reshape that data. So I take this allocation table here and I create another table from it. And what I do is to disaggregate that table. So here we are. I've highlighted a row here. Ian is working on the Alpha project between August and December 2021. He starts in August, he finishes in December, working 40%. And what we do is we shape the data. So instead of we've got one row, we've got 5 rows, one for each month that Ian is working on the Alpha project. And that's better because it makes us it makes Power BI and all these tools are much better just counting up months and count rather than saying thinking about between start date and end date. I say they can do it, but what does that give us? Well, let's have a look at the model. And here we've got this allocation month table, the month that I've just created. And what we've got is that's our what we would call our fact table. And we say basically we've got for a project, a resource and month. That tells us all about it. And the project, resource, and months, those are our 3-dimension tables. So we've created those. Obviously, those tables we've just brought in, we've connected it up with our relationships. Our project also has many stages. Each project has 4 stages, and we have our project stage table that gives us the information about our stages, including a column that tells us our stage name, our stage key. We'll order them so that they're ordered chronologically, concept, design, delivery, run, rather than alphabetically. And finally, what we have is we have a dates table. I've made that's that date table that we brought in every day. I've deliberately not connected up that dates table to make a point later on. Good, great. So that's our data model. And let's go and talk about our first problem. And before we do that, allow me a geeky moment because there's something I've been waiting for a long time. This is a terrible visual and nothing in context. What I've just done is I'm showing the total amount of effort, cumulative effort over the 2 years. But the reason I put it up is that we have these things over here, the series labels, and I have been waiting for these forever. And because this is in the latest release of Power BI, which just came out yesterday, the September 2021 release. If I click on this, what we've got, if I click on here, we've got our series labels that was not there before, and now it is. And just to switch them off, what we used to have to do is I used to think, which one is gamma, which one is delta, I had to do this, but now I can switch on my series labels, and that's a lot nicer. Some small things to make me happy. There you are. Let's get back to the main thing. And let's talk about our first visualization problem. And here what we've got is we want somebody, we want to look at all of our projects. We've got our project pipeline. It's got a list of all our projects. Our problem is that the projects, there's so many data attributes for the project, we can't fit them all into this table. So how do we nicely give our users easy access to all the details about the project? Well, let me show the problem. If I come into project here, if I click on my table, what you will see is that I've got most of my 15 columns, but I haven't been able to fit in my project status. I haven't been able to fit in my business analyst, my project manager. So there's a couple of things that we can do. First of all, we can build a tooltip. And here I'm putting the tooltip over. And with the tooltip, I really like tooltips because you can give the report viewer a lot more information without them having to do a thing. They can do it, look at it like this. They don't have to click on anything. The tooltip is good, and I'm going to build a tooltip like that in just a moment. The also nice thing about that, it's got kind of an English language tooltip, and we'll talk about when we've got lots of data, not a lot of space, how we can do that. The second thing that we've got is if I click on a particular project, the Delta project, or the virus, then I can just come down here, this button lights up, and I can get a drill through page, and I can find out all about Project Delta. And that's quite useful. Obviously, sometimes there's so much information you can't fit on a tooltip. So those are two really good ways of giving people a lot more information when we can only fit certain things on a table. And just to make a point as well, if we come over here and we right click, we can also drill through. We don't need to use the button. We can also drill through. In this case, we'll drill through to that particular one. So let's go ahead and quickly build a really ugly tooltip just to show how it's done. So I'm going to come along and I'm going to create a new page. My new page, I'm going to call it my project tooltip 2 because I've already got a page called project tooltip. I'm going to hide this page. That just means that when I publish it, we won't see this page in the list on the left. This is just a tooltip. It's not going to be a real page. And then I'm going to come along, and what I'm going to say on the page is that we want to apply some tooltip behavior. Tell us it's a tooltip, and we also want it to make it a small tooltip size page. And now we've got a page that's our tooltip. The next thing I'm going to do is I want a title for my tooltip. So I'll put on a card visual. A card visual just creates those kind of big numbers. Sometimes we see at top of dashboards, just one number of one text. So I'm going to use that card, and what I'm going to put on it is I'm going to put my project name on it. Oops, somebody's bleeping in the background there. And what I'll do, that's a big data label, so I'll make it a bit smaller, and I'll get rid of the category, and I'll just put a background on it as well to know that there's that. Lovely. We've got our project thing. Let's just wire it up. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to come along and I'm going to drag that project TT2 to my project pipeline. Try that again. Drag it to my project pipeline. So come to my project pipeline and I'm going to wire that up. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to my table and I'm going to say tooltips, and I'm going to say actually it's already wired up for the original tooltip. I'll put my new ugly tooltip on it, and now we can see that it's wired up to my rather useless ugly tooltip. Let's make that tooltip a bit less ugly. And so what I'm going to do is going to come back to my tooltip. And what I could do is I could use up some of the standard visuals, like I could use a table and I could stick a few things on the table. But that's kind of, and that works. Let's just see that working. Even though it's got several rows on here, when we actually see it, I can do that because when we actually see it, go back to my pipeline, as it hovers over, it's filtered on one project. So we see for the one project. But I've got a lot of attributes and I don't have a lot of space. So maybe I'm not going to use a standard visual. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of that standard visual. Instead here, I'm going to click on a text box. I'm going to put that text box in there. And with this text box, I can start writing the PM is. And it's free text. And what I can do is say, oh, I want to add a value of my PM. So I'm going to click on value, and it's my project manager. And sooner or later, it should pick up my project manager. There we go. And I'm just going to save that. And my lead BA is, and I can just come on and say, again, I can click on a value, and I think I've called it business analyst, and bring that up there. And then I can see as the launch is, and then I'm going to again add a value, and this is how I get to all my things. I can say launch date, help if I ever type with one L, not two L's, launch date. I'll click on that, and I'm going to put that in there. And because I like that so much, I'm going to put that. I can apply any formatting that I want to. Let's make that. Oops. There we go. So let's have a look at how that's doing. So as I come over, what I can do is I can have a really, really nice tooltip. And with that, I can put in a lot of information and I can format it very nicely. So obviously what I do is typically put in the columns that I can't fit on the table. Tooltips are all very well, but sooner or later they run out of space, even if we make them a bit bigger. So what we can do is also create a drill through page, as I've shown. Let me just go and look at Alpha, and I can click on a drill through page. And there we see that. Now, to create a drill through page, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along and I'm going to create another page. Again, I'm going to rename that page, and I'm going to call it my project DT for drill through, and 2 because I've already created a page like that. This is a full page. What I do is I come along and say, actually, this is going to be a drill through page. I'm going to drag my project name onto the drill through fields. Let me click on that again. And it says, this will make it a drill through page. I'm going to say, when I want to create my drill through page, when I'm designing it, I'll just pretend this is drilling through on Gamma. This is just for a design. And then what I might do is I might create a very ugly title with a card, stick my project name on there, and then I might just put in some information. Let's put a bit of information. Here we go. It is possibly the worst ever page that you've seen, but we won't worry about that. We're just interested in how it works. And what this is giving me this back button because it's a drill through page. We'll see why that is in a minute. So I'm going to drag my project DT all down to here as well. And again, I'm going to hide that for reasons that will become obvious when we publish it. So back to my project pipeline. And what I can do now, if I click on here, I can drill through. And now I've got 2 drill throughs. The one that I built earlier in Blue Peter style, and I've got my project drill through 2, so I can drill through to that. And that's really useful. There's a couple of things that are really useful about that. First of all, because we can have several drill throughs, we can drill through, we might have our economic data, our updates, our resourcing data. Sometimes it's so much data that they just won't fit on a one drill through page. So that we can create several drill through pages, and that works. Secondly, you'll notice that unlike with my tooltip, with my drill through, I just didn't have to wire it up anywhere. It just appeared. I created my drill through page and it just appeared. And so that means that any visual on any page that we've got the project name, we'll be able to drill through to those project detail pages, which tends to be really, really, really useful. So there's 2 drill through pages. Now, you might think, oh, this right clicking isn't very discoverable. So what I've done here is I've created a button. I won't go into details about that, but I've just dragged a button on, and on the button, what I've done is I've said, I'll put it down here, I want you to do a drill through action, and then it says what drill through page you want. I'll just change it to my drill through 2 page, And obviously now I could have two buttons, one for drill through and one for drill through. And let me use maybe beta, because gamma was my example. If I drill through to project beta, I get my really awful beta 2 drill through page. Good. That is a couple of ways that we can give the user, allow them to go down to detail from summary information when we've got lots of attributes. Good. Great. Let me just move on to something a bit different. And what I'm going to do is maybe look at the resource profile. And what I've done here is very simple Gantt chart. And what we've got is we've got our projects on our rows and our resource name, and then we've got our years and our months. And what I'm going to do as well is I'll just put the quarters in there. And so what we can do is we can look at and then we can look at our resourcing profile by project. And if we do that, that looks hunky-dory. But what we fail to notice is that some people are over allocated. You can't see from this. So one of the nice things about using a matrix visual like this is that we can drill up and drill down. So I can drill on the rows or drill on the columns. And the PBX is shared. It's in the link in the chat window. If you click on that link, you'll be able to download the PBX file and the source data. And you've got to have, I created it with the latest version of Power BI Desktop, the September 2021 version. So you'll need to download that version free to open it up. So anyway, back to here. I'm clicking on the rows, and what I can do is I can drill up into the rows. So I can just have a look at for my projects as a whole, but then I can drill down to the next level. And now I'm looking at my resources regardless of projects, because some people are looking at some projects. And what I can see because of these little icons here is that both Anne and Ian are more than 100% committed some months. And if you knew my family, you'd know that they were the two hardest working members of my family. So it would be no surprise. But there's a couple of things. First of all, how do we get those icons? And those icons are really useful. So let's have a quick look at how we do this. And rather than going from scratch, what I'll do is I'll work back to front. So what we've got is we've got a measure called months FTE demand. And what I've done, very good practice, normal practice, is that I put all my calculations, my measures in a separate calculations table. So if we have a look at month FTE demand, there's nothing interesting going there. It's just a sum of that allocation month. There's nothing, it's what's called an explicit measure. It's fine. But how do we get those little icons? Well, if we want to come to what I can do is I can click on this and I can look at the conditional formatting. And we've actually got conditional formatting on our, let me just go icons here. And when that comes up, it should come up. There, it took its time, had me worried there. Basically, what we can say is actually what we're doing is we're formatting the icons by a rule. And we've set a rule such that we're using this other field here, is resource overcommitted by month. And basically that we say when it's equal to 1, then give us a red icon, otherwise do nothing. And let's have a look at that is resource overcommitted. And if I have a look, I'm going to bring it up there. And basically what it's saying is basically if the demand is greater than 1, then give us a 1, we shall switch on the icon, otherwise give us a 0. And what it's also saying is that if we only want to show the icon when we're looking at single resources and when we're looking at single months, because we don't want to see those icons. For example, let me just come back and let me drill up if I look at the project level, and maybe even if I come and drill up on my columns and look at the quarter level, obviously now what we're doing is we're looking at the number of person months for each project for each quarter. These numbers are much bigger than 1, and we don't want the visualization to show there. We only want the visualization to show when we come down to both the person level, and if I can drill down into my columns, and actually we want to drill up to, so we want to drill my rows because we don't see it in there. And a project nobody is occupied, and drill down. Let's have a look. There we go. We only want to see them when we're looking at individual people, resources, and only at months at a time, because the allocation is in person months. So there we go. Good. Right. And those are quite useful things to put on to highlight when we've got individual problems. Now, this is a underwhelming visualization. All it's showing is our project dates and when our projects start and when our projects finishes. So Alpha starts sometime in February 2021, in fact the first, and it finishes in March next year. Same. Let's have a look at Delta. We've got one. I do have one that finishes here. Beta starts on the 5th of January, or started on the 5th of January, and therefore we're coloring the whole month. Now, it looks easy, but it's not. And let me explain the problem. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to create a new matrix. And what I had on my matrix is I can get along to my project. I'll put my project name on my matrix. And I'm going to put, what I'm going to put is I'm going to put in my dates. I'm going to put I'll just put my year quarter on my columns. And all of a sudden, I get this can't display the visual. And if I look at see details, it says, well, I haven't got any fields, but I can't determine the relationship between the fields. And that's reasonable because what I'm doing at the moment, I've got my project. And what I want to do is I want to show the start date and I want to show the end date, which is there. And I want to show it on a matrix with this dates column, but there's no relationship between these two columns. I've deliberately not put a relationship in there. And even if I did, it wouldn't work because these are attributes of the project. When we were looking at before, we were looking at this FTE, which has a relationship with projects and the months table. So that would work, but this won't. So how are we going to solve it? Because we do want to see that. And to solve it, we can create a something like this. I'll just drag it on. And what we've got there is we've got I'll just take the style to minimal. We've got something that gives us a 1 if the project is in the period and a 0 otherwise. Let me maybe if I come along and actually put it to what I'll do here is instead of doing that, I'll do my year. I'll put in my quarter and I'll put in my month because now we can drill down. Let's drill down. And so you can see that Delta starts and finishes in 2021. Let me drill down into my quarters and then into my months. And what I'm going to do just very quickly to get the visual is obviously I probably want to get rid of those subtotals. They're not particularly useful. So now I've got that. And then what I want to do is I want to come and say, actually, again, I'm going to go to my conditional formatting. And this time I'm going to create a rule. First of all, I'm going to create a rule for my background color. And first up, that's given me, I could start off with that and say, actually, lowest value is 0 and make that a different color. That's already will work. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is coming in and saying, actually, I want to have a look at, go on, give it to me, a rule. And what I'm going to say is when is project in period is equal to 1, exactly as I did before. I'll make it a different color this time just to prove the point. There we go. And I can do that. I've got that. And then I might want to get rid of again, I might want to use my font color. and say, actually, to get rid of those fonts, again, I'm going to create a rule where we say if it's equal to 1, then it's the same number as the background color, so it won't show. I think I used that one, not quite sure. Otherwise, and I'll put a new rule, if it's equal to 0, which is the only other option, I'm going to say I'm going to make that, I'm going to make that white. And if we do that, then we can see it as more of a Gantt chart. And so that's good. One other way of doing it is, and I'll show you a bit in a minute. What's interesting, though, is not so much the formatting, but how we created that measure to join these two things that weren't related. So again, if I have a look at that, I'm creating a measure, and this measure says, and again, this is where the hand waving bit comes in. Basically, it comes down here, and what we're trying to say is we're comparing our project start date and end date. So let me go back and say, basically, if we've got a project, if we're looking at, say, September 2021, if our project starts after September 21, it's not, the project isn't in that period. If it finishes before September 21, then it's not in the period. And what we're doing here is we're just using that logic. That's exactly what we're saying. If that's the logic, basically, I'm saying if it follows that, it's not, I get the project date and the period date, and I just apply that logic. If it's easy to say, if it's not in the project, it gets a 0, otherwise it gets a 1. So what I've done here is created a measure that relates two things, two tables that are not related in the model. And that gives me the 0 and the 1. So you might feel that's a lot of hard work just to create a Gantt chart, but you can do a bit better than that. And what I've got, if I look at this is my project Gantt chart, and what we might want to do is starting to get useful when we have a look at, let me just move Bill, make that bigger, when we're looking at 1, and this is just more of the same, where we're looking at 1, where we're seeing not just the start and end, but when the stages happen. And so what I've done here, again, exactly the same, it's just a bit extended. I've created that. What I've got is I've got another measure is project in period name. Let's have a look at it. It's project in period key project stage here. And so what I've done there is just more of the same, but this time I'm looking at each different period. And the one thing that we can do is we want to color. And so what I've also done is in my cosmetic folder is I've got a measure, and that measure just says, basically we get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where the 1 is concept, 2 is design, 3 is delivery, 4 is run, 0 is nothing. So what I'm saying is I'm just mapping each of these to a particular color. And these are all colors. There's about 200 colors that Power BI understands. They're called CSS colors. I think the link is in, I'll show the link later on. But what I've done there is, again, if I go to my conditional formatting for this particular field, and what I've done is, let's have a quick look, condition field formatting, I want the conditional formatting. And if I look at my advanced controls, this time I'm simply saying, I'm not using, why does it take so long to click on it? Come on, click on me. I'm not using color scale. I'm not using rules. I'm using field value. And I've just chosen that field is project stage in period. And that's just returning a color name. And that's how I get those. That's probably the nicest way of getting the colors on there. Good. Great. Fantastic. Okay. So far, we've talked about Power BI a lot, and I think that's basically what I wanted to show. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come along and I'm going to publish my lovely chart. What I do to publish it, I'll come along here and I'm going to click on publish, and that will publish that to the Power BI service, where we can all, if we're all in the same company, we can look at it. It's just publishing now. I'm publishing it to a workspace, a kind of area for reports called Projecting Success Training. And if any of you are on the apprentice data analysis cohort, you'll probably be getting this. We'll probably be doing this in session 2 with me. Let me just replace that. And then we can have a look at what we've done. So if I have a quick look at that, what we've got, we can see this, and let's have a look at this, and we can have a look at our projects pipeline, and we can see that it's running our really ugly tooltip. So we've got our pages up there, all nice and well, but one of the things is this. To go back to my Power BI desktop, there we go. In my model, I've done something. I've gone along to my project table. I brought up my properties, and what I've done is I've switched on this is featured table. And what I do here, and I'll explain why I'm doing that. Basically, what I've got is I've got the featured table. I'm saying this is going to be discoverable in Excel. And so I'm saying here's a table. And by the way, Excel, you need to know project name is a unique ID. So what happens then is this. Let me just come back to that. And I'm going to come back to my Excel. And I'm just going to open up a new Excel. I've got one opened up somewhere. If I could click on, let me just go to my Excel. Let's just open up a new one. File, and I'm opening up a new Excel. Good. And what I can do here is this. I can come along to data, and then what Excel gives me, it gives me this thing here, which maybe users, first of all, it gives some standard data types. If I'm interested in stocks or geography, it provides those. But also, because I published it, it's got this from your organization, and I've just published this project data set. So what I can do is it tells us a bit about it. You can see I published it just a couple of moments ago. It tells us, and that's the description of the project. So sometimes, and I might just make this a bit bigger, what people like to do is they just like to get the data. And so I'm looking at my alpha and my delta projects. And what I can do is I can click on those. And again, I can click on this and click on project. And what it should do, I'm really hoping it does do, is that it gives me these as linked data types. And I'm just a bit worried. It says converting to linked data types, please escalate. Okay, lovely. And it's got this very interesting. It's got this alpha. I'll just add a beta to it as well. Okay, and so what we've got here is we've got these linked data types, and what that means is I can come up here and I can find every bit of information is at my fingertips. So I might be interested in, okay, what was the project RAG for each of those? Can I drill it down? Interesting though, it didn't find delta. I wonder why it didn't find delta. And I did call my project delta. Maybe I've got a space in there. So let me just try again. I'm just going to put gamma in there. I know I've got a gamma project. It's found gamma and it's found delta. So something's wrong with my delta project. I can't see what it is, but never mind. Anyway, I'm not going to solve that here and now, but it means, so I'll just delete that for the moment. But it means that what I can do is find out lots of information about this. First of all, I can hover over this and Shift F5, it's telling me to do. Let me just do that. Oh, that didn't give it to me. Normally it just gives me the Control Shift F5. Normally just I don't need to do Control Shift F5, but it gives me all the information about it there on a card, and I can get more information. I can come over here and I can say equals D4, and I can say dot. Maybe I'm interested now in the business analyst. So this is a great way if you just want to give people access to the data and they can get their own cut of it here, then they can do this. And maybe another session, this is just touching the surface of what we can do with these cards. But the interesting thing is that this is, again, linked to the published data set that we've created. When we update that data set, this linked data will update. So the people looking at their data in Excel have got exactly the same data as the people looking at the published reports. And finally, just to remind you, though you probably already know, if I go back to my reports, go back to my projecting success training, another way that I can get this data in Excel is I can come over here to my data set and I can click on Analyze in Excel. And I can bring up, that brings me up a project, an Excel file. I can just open it. That Excel file will connect me to a Power BI table. Let's click on that, enable editing. Let's say yes to all. And let's click up on that. And then again, I've got, let's just use that. It's project, I'll just use it in project in period. And I'll use it by, I just use the year month on my rows. And I'll use project on my, actually I use project on my columns, year month. So here I am, I'm starting to recreate the same thing as we had with that Gantt chart in Excel. Obviously I've got to do quite a bit of formatting and things like that, but pivot tables, you know, the old-fashioned way is still available to us. But I think that these linked data types are much easier for end users to use once you've trained them a bit. And especially with all the kind of descriptive and qualitative data that we've got in classic project data, I think that's a kind of more better way to go. So that's what I wanted to show today. There are a couple of other things that if anybody's interested in the Q&A, we can talk about personalization. We can talk about bookmarks, which are ways of people having the cut that they want to see. But I have used up my 45 minutes. I hope that you've enjoyed it. What I will be doing, as I said, this is a lot of very hand waving. What I will be doing on my YouTube channel is I'll be doing kind of 10-minute videos where I do everything in detail, a kind of how to in detail. And I'll be putting those up over the next few weeks. Great. So, Yoshi, I will hand over back to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. That's an excellent presentation. I particularly like how you allocated the resources and particularly how you pulled in the data for different subsets. If you want controlled access, I think that's really cool. Thanks for that, Mark. Guys, if you've got any questions, feel free to put it in the chat or maybe come off mute now. We could pick some of those up and present those to Mark. We have a question from Fernando here saying, where is he getting the data from, Mark?
Okay, so I'm getting the data for this demo. I'm getting the data. You can actually see my screen still. I'm getting the data. I brought the data in from an Excel spreadsheet because I just wanted to quickly knock up some fictitious but realistic data. Though it's Power BI, I could have got the data from, I could have connected to a database over anywhere.
All right, good. Excellent.
So yes, and I think maybe I misunderstood your question. Again, where am I getting data from? If I look at, again, the two, if I look at this OneDrive for Business, what we've got, the data is sitting there, and that's the data, that's the project analysis file. And just one thing that you might have to do is this. If I go to when you want to recreate it, if I go back to my Power BI file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into transform data, go to the query editor, and then what we've got in the query editor is I've got this parameter here. That parameter points to the file on my PC, the sample data file on my PC. You want to point it to the sample data file on your PC. When you open it, you're going to get something like this, all those yellow triangles, because unless you've got exactly the same location as me. So if you point it to where it is, they become rectangles, and you can see what's in the query editor as well.
Excellent.
So that's the only thing that you have to do to get the example working. And if you've got any challenges from this is going to be a kind of sample data set that I'm going to use in lots of tutorials and lessons. So questions, comments, anything, challenges to make it more complicated, I'd be interested to hear them.
Excellent. And I think Fernando's also referring to the second part of the Excel, Mark, which is where I think when you publish a data set, you pulled it from the link.
Publish the data set.
On the,
yes. So
yeah, where you
okay. So in the Excel, what I'm doing there, yeah, and I probably didn't explain that well, Phil. So let me go back to my Excel, and in my Excel here, I've got these types. And that's because I've got this project. Where did this project came from? If I hover over project there, it's part of organizational data. So Excel gives us lots of data about stocks, geography, and lots more to come. And Excel is powering that. Everybody gets that. It's powered from Wolfram data. So it's available to everybody. But it's also got organizational data. And and this is data that people have published to a Power BI data set. So there's a couple of things that we have to do. Let me just go back and remind you about them. In my Power BI data model, if I want a table to be published, I come along to that table and I set that table here. I set it to a featured table. That's the first thing. That's what I've got to do. I've got to, by default, that's no. And for everything else, that's no. That's why those other tables aren't being featured. But for project, that's my main table with my information. I've set it to yes. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along and then I've got to publish that. I've got to get that model. I've got to publish that. I'm publishing that to my tenant. I've got my own Power BI tenant, and in my tenant is full of workspaces. Workspaces are kind of areas where we can publish reports and data to, and we can give people access to, they can see them. So I'm publishing that to the tenant, and if I go to that tenant, let's have a quick look. It's published there, but if I click on Projecting Success Training, if I look at my access, anybody who's got access to this tenant, there's only me and my son. It's very exclusive, but anybody who's got access to that tenant, when they bring up Excel, will see that when they bring up Excel, again, let's go to that. It will just appear, this organization will appear, and then because I publish project, I project product and characters later on, any tables, published tables will appear here. So there you go. And then they just have to put in a couple of things and then they can get started. And there's really, we're just touching the surface here. There's a lot more that you can do with this data. We can start building little Excel applications based on these linked data sets. So if people, and they don't have to be pivot tables as well, which is a nice thing. So we can do some really nice things here. I can just click on this and say equals, and what's my expected revenue? I can find out. And it doesn't have to be boxy at all. I can just insert a row here. So we've got kind of the advantage of formulas. We don't have the boxiness of pivot tables. And it's, as I say, if we've got lots of qualitative data, then this is really useful. Maybe you can invite me back in a few months to talk and we'll build a nice Excel application based on this linked data.
Excellent. Sounds good, Mark. We've got another question here from Daweed, I want to say. He'll be attending Project Hack 11, but doesn't have much experience working with Power BI. Do you have any recommendations how you can best prepare?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a couple of things. First of all, you don't need Power BI for Project Hack 11. You'll be using lots of tools. Power BI is just one of them, and there are lots of alternatives. But if you want to learn Power BI, there's a couple of places I would go. First of all, I'm almost duty bound to suggest that you can still see my screen. What we've got here, let me stop. Let's do that. Stop. My meetup group going 6 years. When we went virtual, we started putting the videos, and because I and my friend Chris, who organize it, were big Power BI people, well, that's the wrong way. We're interested in Power BI. We've created a lot of videos about Power BI, including getting started with Power BI. So there is this this thing here, and we start at the ground up. There is one actually getting started in Power BI. The good thing about all of those is that if you click on one of them, not only is the video there, but if I show more, you can click on here and you can pull down the worked example file. So this one is getting started. Where would that be? So here are the files for all of our ones. So if I went into, can't see getting started, but never mind, I'll go into cleaning data. And there you are. We've got the data set, we've got some instructions, and we've got the worked example Power BI file. So that's one way of doing it. The other thing that I would do is this. There's a really good person called Baz who does lots of fantastic, and I haven't got the link here, but let me just go. If I go to YouTube, Baz Power BI, and hopefully it will come up and not something terrible. Let's see. Yeah, this guy is wonderful. And I'll put the link in How to Power BI. And let me stop it up here. But he has got really well explained, fantastic demos. He really does the job in a fantastic way. I take a lot of inspiration from him. He's really good to watch. And that's a really good way to get started as well. So 2 ways to get started.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Guys, if you've got any other questions, I think put them in the chat or we'll start to close off the session. And if you want to come up new and speak to Mark directly, now's your chance. We'll just give it a few moments, Mark, to see what else comes in. Otherwise, no. Oh, I think we've got someone coming in.
Thanks, Regina. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So as I say, we've got the videos in the YouTube group.
Excellent. Oh, we've got no more questions that I can see. Well, thank you very much, Mark, for having you on the PDA community. I think we'll also
It's been a pleasure.
Time see how we can kind of challenge and take this a lot further. I think it's a great starting point for people to start learning. Guys, you've seen Mark's LBAG community.
Yeah, and I'll put my email in there. You've probably got it, but if anybody wants to reach out with suggestions or any questions, I'm very happy to answer them. So that's my email address. So you can always, if you want to grab me, you can always do that.
Excellent.
And otherwise,
sorry, Mark, go
on. No, all yours.
Absolutely. And Mark's also one of the guest speakers for our apprenticeship as well. Like I mentioned, that is now closing at the end of September for the October cohort, and that will be then rolled on to November for those who are interested. If you are interested, I've set the link in the chat. And alternatively, you can email me for more information and we can have a chat to kind of pick up a bit more about how you can upskill with the data analytics. Otherwise, we've got a few more sessions in the pipe. Otherwise, guys, have a great evening and we'll catch you soon. Thanks.